Dean Parker. He is Carson's senior campaign advisor and national finance campaign chairman. Dean, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here this
So
morning.
you just heard Blake Berman's report, the word out that Trump is the guy to beat Hillary Clinton. I mean, Republican voters are going to be watching next week, and they want to know on that stage who out there is going to be able to beat Hillary Clinton. Can Carson do it?
Well, if you look at the polling numbers, we can see that right now we're leading Hillary by at least a couple points head to head when you go into that, depending on which poll you look at. Number two, you got to remember, Dr. Carson is not just a neurosurgeon. He is a executive. He served on the board of Kellogg for 18 years, Costco for 16 years, chairman of the board for Vaxogen. He has a lot of experience in the business world. And when you get down to it, one of the things you got to remember is Dr. Carson has always put great teams together.
Okay, that's what I want to talk to you about, because we're now learning all of this new information about ISIS putting a bomb on a plane, taking that Russian jet down. Who's advising him on foreign policy and on some of these adversaries that are getting worse around the world?
So we have many military, both current and former advisors advising him. Number two, one thing you've got to remember is Dr. Carson knew that many years ago, after the prayer breakfast, and this came up that could he run, he spent the last 3 years focusing on, in a conference room or in a hotel room, working with his military advisors. He wanted to understand everything that was going on in the world, and I would put him up against any candidate in experience. He's been to over 57 countries. He's worked in over 30 countries, and he has an extreme amount of experience internationally that people don't know about.
So,
John Bussey.
Carson has clearly appealed to the electorate. He has a personality that has engaged them. They like him. He's a nice guy. But he is not a man who has managed a large organization. Being on the board of Kellogg is being on the board of Kellogg. That's not managing Kellogg. You know, your board of directors has sort of incremental involvement in the running of the company. This man's not a bureaucrat. He does not have experience in the good sense of the word bureaucrat, running a state, running a big agency, running the country as his first major management job.
Well, I think you have to remember he also has experience on changing and building things. So, no, while he may not have managed hundreds of thousands of people directly, he indirectly did many things, like he took over Johns Hopkins department when it was on the bottom of neurosurgeon worldwide, took it to the top. He has 5 world-changing surgeries that are practiced all around the world that were never done until he pioneered them. So I think in this presidential election, people aren't worried necessarily about all the experience as a bureaucrat, because we had 8,000 plus years of Congress right now, and where has it gotten us?
Well, I'm not sure that that's an answer to the question of his not being experienced as a manager. I think that Americans are concerned about somebody who can manage, who can take a large organization and make it change.
Go ahead.
I would say that when you look at that, you got to look at the experience. How many great CEOs came in and they'd never done that job before, and they've gone and transformed? Jack Welch had never run GE, and he was one of the greatest CEOs in the world.
That's a good point.
And Dr. Carson has experience on solving complex problems with great teams. And right now, this country needs a leader, not a manager.
Well, I mean, management style is real important, and understanding how he would approach building a team, how he would approach putting his cabinet together. What's the answer?
So he'll do this methodically, what he does. He's very good at taking all the data and the facts. He studies them. He takes advice from all the advisors that he enjoys, and he's built years of experience building in. He has a very good Rolodex. I would put it up against anybody's Rolodex when it comes to respect and credibility. He will put those people around him. He will figure it out, and he understands it's got to be a combination. There have to be many people that have been in these jobs and been in the government and done it, that have been waiting for their chance to break out and change things that need to get changed.
Kevin?
Yeah. You had mentioned the prayer breakfast, and back in 2011, that was a great defining moment. He actually said some awesome comments in front of President Obama, as well as his wife, talking about the problems we're having, especially with their administration. I think one of the things as a voter in the primary, it's can he hold up and actually go toe-to-toe with Hillary? Can he attack her and break down her problems, her policies, and really show that he can take the general election? And I think that's one of the biggest concerns. How is he going to address that in the upcoming debate?
So, number one, he's ready to speak very specifically about plans and actions. We're hoping that this next debate is actually about the issues and you get a chance to explain versus being a dogfight, which you know has been the problem in the past. I will tell you this, if you look into what you're talking about, most of the country would agree he is one of the smartest, if not the smartest person on the stage right now, and he will use his intellectual capacity to take and build solutions. He has said, we don't have to use a hammer around the world to bang everything and just to say we are the strongest in the world to take it out. He has said, why don't we use other policies where we can put everybody in place, build coalitions, change the world internationally, and do things that haven't been done since the Reagan years.
Well, the other thing is we need more specifics. I mean, I was reading a bit of his commentary on minimum wage. First, he said, minimum, wages should go up. And then he said, well, no, I don't necessarily mean that the minimum wage will go up. I mean, in terms of his real specifics, in terms of an economic plan, what are the cornerstones?
He's vague.
So you have to remember he's vague for a certain reason. He has come into a thing where people didn't know him. When we got into the first debate, he had less than 50% name recognition. He has continued to grow. He wanted people to get a chance to know him and understand who he was as a person first. His story has been now quintessential shared, and that's the American dream of the bottom 1% working his way up and successfully building something.
Are we going to...
Two, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is that how Facebook plays into your guys' campaign? Because we saw there were over 240 ads targeted. So is that how he's getting his name recognition out there?
So we are building it, and you can see the name recognition growing. We've used social media. We're #1 on all social media platforms, and we're growing constantly.
And you said two.
The second thing I was going to say was you have to remember in this issue, you talk about name recognition and growth. He knew that this is a marathon. Who wants to peak in the middle of November or the beginning of December? We are ready to roll these things out towards the end of the year as we go into the true primary states in February and March. That's when the voters will have, let's say, a month or 2 months to get those issues out and look at our policy papers and take it.
Well, we look forward to the debate next week, Dean. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Dean Parker joining us, National Finance Chairman for Dr. Ben Carson.